So looking at number 1, this is kind of asking us for two different things. We need to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, one that's parallel and then the other one that's perpendicular. So let's start with the parallel one. So with the given line, we just need to find our slope here. How would I find the slope of this line? Awesome. Let's add the 9 to the other side, and then we can subtract the 6. We want to get it to be y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. Once it's in this form, we know whatever in front of the x is our slope. So we want to get the y by itself. So we have 3y equals negative 6x plus 9. And then what could we do next? Divide everything by 3. So y equals negative 2x plus 3. So what's our slope here? Slope would be negative 2. And if our line is parallel, what's the slope of our line going to be? Negative 2, the same thing. So now with our new line, we use that slope and we use the point. So we're going to start with point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So our point's going to be x1 and y1, and our slope is the m. So y minus 2 is equal to negative 2 times x minus negative 3. So that turns into plus 3. Now this is point slope form. We started with point slope form since we were given the point and the slope. But how could I put this into slope-intercept form? Awesome. Let's distribute. We want to get it to be y equals all by itself. So we have negative 2x minus 6. Then what should we do? Add the 2. Let's move the 2 to the other side. So y equals negative 2x minus 4. So this would be our answer for the parallel part. Now let's do the same thing, but perpendicular. So we found the slope. It's going to be the same slope from the beginning. But what would the perpendicular slope be? Awesome. The opposite reciprocal, so it would be 1 over 2. Positive 1 over 2. You change the sign and flip the number. Now we're going to do the same thing. Given our point and the slope, we're going to put it into point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m, so 1/2, times x minus x1, which would be x plus 3. We still have to put this in slope-intercept form. How would we put it into slope-intercept form? Distribute. So y minus 2 is equal to 1/2 x plus 3/2. Then what would we do next? Add 2. Move it to the other side. What do we do when we're adding with a fraction and a whole number? What do we need? A common denominator. So I could make this 2 over 1, and then to give it a common denominator, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 2, so it'd be 4 over 2. Then we can just add the numerators together. We get 7 over 2. So this would be our answer for perpendicular. So this is kind of asking us for two different things. First, we wanted to find the slope of the line that was given. When it's asking us for the parallel, we know it's the same slope. When it's perpendicular, it's opposite reciprocal slope. So we flip the number and flip the sign. So when we're multiplying fractions here, this would be like 3 over 1. So 1/2 times 3 over 1. Since it was a whole number, you multiply the tops together and multiply the bottoms. So that's how we got 3 over 2. Yeah. So when you multiply fractions, multiply straight across. When you're adding with fractions, you need a common denominator. So for number 5, it says use the discriminant to determine the types/numbers of solutions. So on the test, it's going to say, to find the discriminant, we want to find the number. And then it's going to say the number of solutions. So there's kind of two answers to this question. But first, let's find the discriminant. To define the discriminant, we use the formula b squared minus 4ac. So it's like what's under the square root of the quadratic formula. So b squared minus 4ac. Now before we can just plug in our a, b, and c for number 5, it has to be equal to 0. Everything needs to be on one side and it needs to be in order. So what should I do first for number 5? Subtract 10, perfect. We're going to subtract 10 to make it equal to 0. So x squared minus 6x minus 10 equals 0. So what's our a? A would be 1, b is negative 6, and c is negative 10. So that's why it's important. You got to move everything to one side first, then find your a, b, and c. It's got to be in your standard form order. And then we can just plug it into our formula. So we have negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 10. So negative 6 squared would be 36. Negative 4 times 1 would be negative 4. And negative 4 times negative 10 would be positive 40. And 36 plus 40? 76. So our discriminant is the number 76. When our discriminant is positive, what does it tell us about the number of solutions? We have 2 real solutions. So just to make a note here so we remember, when our discriminant is positive, we have 2 real solutions. When our discriminant is 0, we have 1 real solution. And when our discriminant is negative, we have no real solution. So for this question, we had to find the discriminant and the number of solutions. We've got 2 real solutions here since our discriminant was positive. All right, next let's do number 8. Let's solve by factoring. On the test, you're going to have questions that say solve by factoring, where you can factor. It will be factorable. You are going to have questions that say solve by completing the square, which we'll practice some of those. And you'll have questions that say solve using the quadratic formula. So each question will have its specific directions. So if it says solve by factoring, you're going to want to factor. If it says solve by completing the square, complete the square. If it says solve by using quadratic formula, use the quadratic formula. So each question will have its own directions. So just do whatever the directions say. So for number 8, let's solve by factoring. Remember, when we are solving by factoring, it has to be equal to 0 first. So 8's already good. It equals 0. We don't have a leading coefficient, so we could just factor it normally. What are 2 factors of negative 27 that add to negative 6? Awesome, negative 9 and positive 3. So we have x minus 9 and x plus 3. Now when we're solving, we need to find what x equals. Solve means we got to find what x equals. So I'm going to set both of these equal to 0. So x minus 9 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. So x is equal to what? Positive 9 and negative 3. Perfect. So these would be our 2 solutions here. Let's do 10 next. I'll do 9 after. For 10, what should we do first? Let's take out our GCF. Our GCF is x. So we're going to take out the x. We're left with 6x squared plus 5x minus 4. So x is just going to stay outside. We'll set it equal to 0 at the end when we need to solve. What would we do next to factor here? Awesome. Multiply the first times the last, so we get negative 24. What are 2 factors of negative 24 that add to 5? 8 and negative 3. Perfect. They multiply to negative 24, add to positive 5. So we have x plus 8 and x minus 3, and that x on the outside. What do we have to do next? Don't forget, if you start by multiplying, you have to remember to divide by that first number. So we're going to divide both of these by 6. Simplify the fraction if it can be simplified. Can I simplify 8 over 6? Yeah, what goes into both 8 and 6? 2. So I can make this 4 over 3. Whatever's left in our denominator is going to go in front of that x. So this would be 3x plus 4. And then same thing with the second one here. Can I simplify 3 over 6? Yeah, we can divide them both by 3, so it becomes 1 over 2. So whatever is left in our denominator, we move in front of the x. So this would be 2x minus 1. Now we're not just factoring, we have to solve too. So I'm going to set each one of these equal to 0. So x equals 0, 3x plus 4 equals 0, and 2x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals 0 is already solved for us. That's one of our answers. We've got 2 more. Next one, I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So 3x equals negative 4, and then what do we do? Divide by 3. So x equals negative 4 over 3. So that's our second answer. Same thing with the last one. We're going to add 1 on both sides. So 2x equals 1. And then divide by 2. So x equals 1/2. Because this question started with x to the third power. Okay. Because it starts with x to the third power, highest degree is 3, that tells us that we're going to have 3 answers. Number 8, our highest degree was 2. It was x to the second power, so we only had 2 answers. What should we do first for number 9? Add 8. Perfect. Before we factor, we need it to be equal to 0. So we have negative 3x squared minus 10x plus 8. So make sure you put it in standard form. Before we multiply the first times the last here, what do you think we should do first to make this a little bit easier for us? Let's divide everything by negative 1. It's not fun to factor when your leading coefficient is negative. So you can divide everything by negative 1. Just flip the signs of everything. In the beginning, you could have added 3x squared and added 10 to move it to the other side, and you'd end up with the same thing. But let's divide everything by negative 1. Let's make our leading coefficient positive. So we have 3x squared. This becomes plus 10x minus 8 equals 0. Now here our leading coefficient is not 1, so it doesn't start with a 1. What do we have to do to factor? Multiply the first times the last. 3 times negative 8, negative 24. And what are 2 factors of negative 24 that add to 10? Negative 12 and 2. Be careful here. A lot of people will say negative 4, negative 6, but negative 4 times negative 6 doesn't multiply to, yeah, you're right. It doesn't multiply to negative 24. It should be positive 12 and negative 2, because that'll be 10. Yeah. So here we have x plus 12 and x minus 2. What do we have to remember to do next? Divide by 3. If you start by multiplying the first times the last, you have to remember to divide. So in the first factor here, 12 divided by 3 is what? 4. So we have x plus 4. So it simplifies. When it doesn't simplify, what do we do with the x? What do we do with the denominator? Move it in front of the x. We have 3x minus 2. Now we can set them both equal to 0. X plus 4 equals 0. 3x minus 2 equals 0. So x is equal to -4. Second one, we got to do a little bit more work. We've got 3x equals 2, and then divide by 3. So x equals 2/3. So these would be our two answers here. Yeah, so for number 9, we could have added 3x squared to move it to the other side and added 10x to move it to the other side. So then we would end up with 0 equals 3x squared plus 10x minus 8, which is the same thing we got in this step here after we divided by the -1. So you can move everything to the right side, make your x squared positive. Just easier to factor when your x squared is positive. Next, let's solve by completing the square. So for number 11, what should we do first to complete the square? Perfect. When we complete the square, we want the x and the x is on one side and then the number on the other. So I'll say the x plus x. We're going to leave a space to complete the square. Put the number on the other side. So we can subtract 15, move it over. So x squared minus 18x. I'm going to leave a space to complete the square, and it's equal to -15. What's the formula that we use when we complete the square? B over 2 squared. Perfect. So this is our formula that we use to complete the square. What's our b? -18. It's always what's in front of the x. So we have -18 over 2 squared. So -18 over 2 simplifies to -9. So what's going to go into our parentheses squared? Awesome. X minus 9. Since it's -9, we're going to put x minus 9. So the two things that are squared on the left side go into the parentheses squared. Now we have to keep our equation balanced. What is -9 squared? 81. So I'm adding 81 on the left side here. What else do we have to do? We got to add it to the right side too. You got to keep your equation balanced. So whatever you're putting in to complete the square, you've got to add the same number to the right. So then this is equal to, let's add these two together. What's -15 plus 81? $66. So we completed the square, we did the hard part. Last thing we need to do is to solve. What would we do next to solve? Square root both sides. Perfect. We got to get rid of that squared. So we're going to square root both sides. So it cancels out there. We have x minus 9 is equal to what? Perfect. Anytime you take the square root of both sides, you need that plus or minus. So plus or minus square root 66. What do we do next? Plus 9. So add 9 to the other side. So we get x equals 9 plus or minus square root 66. Always put the number, like the whole number, in front of your square root. And then just to make sure, can we simplify the square root of 66? What are two factors of 66? 6 and 11, and then 6 is 2 and 3. Do we have any pairs? No. So it doesn't simplify, so this is our answer. What should we do first for 13? Awesome. We can add the 5x squared. Let's move it to the other side. And then we could also subtract the 65. We know that we are completing the square here, so we want the x's on one side, the constant number on the other. So we've got 5x squared minus 10x. I'm going to leave a space to complete the square, and it's equal to -65. Before we complete the square here, what do you think we should do? We see that our leading coefficient's 5. How could we change that to make it a 1 to complete the square? Let's divide everything by 5. Our GCF is 5. So you could have done that in the first step. If you want to divide everything by 5, works there too. So we get x squared minus 2x now. I'm going to leave a space to complete the square, is equal to negative 13. So when you're completing the square, it's going to be helpful if your leading coefficient is 1.
So the 5 goes away?
The 5 goes away. So it's just a number. We're dividing everything by the 5. It goes away. So there's no x that we're taking out. Since it's just a number, it goes away. What's the formula we use to complete the square? B over 2 squared. What's our b here? Negative 2. So negative 2 over 2 squared. Negative 2 over 2 is? Negative 1. So we have negative 1 squared. So in our parentheses squared, what are we going to put? Awesome. X minus 1, and then it's squared. Now we have to keep our equation balanced. What is negative 1 squared? Positive 1. So we're adding 1 on the left side here. So we got to make sure we add 1 to the right side also. So then this would be equal to what? Negative 12. What should we do next? Square root both sides. Perfect. So it's going to cancel out with the squared. So we have x minus 1 is equal to, can I take the square root of a negative? No. So what do you think our answer would be here? No solution. So if you end up with a negative under your square root, we've got no real solution, or you could say no solution. No real solution. So like we can't complete the square in this step and here unless we take out the 5. So you'd have to take it out in this step anyways. It's still, this one it works out because it'd still be no real solution. So if you have a negative under your square root, then it's no real solution. We don't have to do the rest of it. We don't have to add 1 to the other side or put plus or minus. It's just going to be no real solution. So that's going to apply for solving by completing the square or the quadratic formula. If you have a negative under the square root, it is no real solution. So if you're taking the square root of a negative number, then it's no real solution. Yeah, so for 12, I would divide everything. You want to divide everything by 4 first. So we have x squared plus this would be 3x. We're going to leave a space to complete the square, and it equals 6. So for 15, what do we have to do first? Add x. For quadratic formula, it has to be equal to 0. You got to move everything to one side and put it in standard form. So we have 5x squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. So our quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So what's our a? A is 5. What's b? 1, and c would be negative 2. So let's plug that all in. We have negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 2 over 2 times 5. So negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared is just 1. 4 times 5 would be 20, and 20 times 2 would be 40. And then we've got a negative times a negative, which would be positive. So positive 40 over 2 times 5, which would be 10. So we have negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 10. Always, always, always check to make sure you can't simplify your square root. Can I simplify the square root of 41? Do we have any factors of 41? No, so it doesn't simplify. So this would be our answer. All right, let's do 16. What should we do for 16? Sure, we can subtract the x and move it to the right side. That works. So we have 0 equals, make sure you're putting it in standard form on the right side. So we've got 2x squared minus x plus 1. So we're still solving using our quadratic formula. What's our a? 2. What's b? -1. And c? +1. Perfect. So we have negative b, so negative -1 plus or minus the square root of b squared would be -1 squared minus 4 times a times c, so times 2 times 1 over 2 times a, so 2 times 2. So this turns to +1 plus or minus the square root of 1. -4 times 2 would be -8 times 1 would be -8 over 2 times 2 is 4. So then here we have 1 plus or minus, what's 1 minus 8? -7 over 4. What happens when we get a negative under the square root? No real solution. If you have a negative under the square root, it is no real solution. Or you could say no solution.